I have warned people, do not make a video of me on Sunday morning and put together my mannerisms. Would not be pretty. We're talking about high-impact words, and we've determined that high-impact words do two things, because God's words do two things. It says in James chapter 3, the wisdom from above is first pure, then peacemaking, gentle, reasonable, full of mercy and good fruit, unwavering and without hypocrisy. 6 words that describe high-impact words. We've seen that they do two things. They build bridges. High-impact words build bridges between, and they do so a couple ways. They make peace, peace-loving. And when we reflect God or represent God, we make peace. We don't go to war with ourselves or others. We make peace. We find common ground. Try to establish a sense of what is similar between two people. Consider it that really is what the word means. It's to try to find some commonality and bring me and another individual onto what is common ground, and then build consensus. What can we agree on as we think of what we're trying to do? In what way can this be a win-win proposition? And then model mercy. One way to make peace is to do something that demonstrates to somebody your good intention. And whether it's call attention to something that you do wrong, it's not creating an adversarial relationship. And you look at something like this and you wonder, well, what good does that do? I think all of us have the sense that if you're going to change something, you need to be pretty firm and determined and critical. But there's a lot of work out there that indicates that that's not true. Well Done. There's a book that was catalyzed by 2 business people going to SeaWorld in San Diego. One was a businessman who was frustrated with the inability to make people in his business do what he wanted them to do. And that same thing was true in his home as well. And he saw this Shamu, which is an 11,000-pound killer whale. They are on the top of the food chain relative to the sea. There's no animal that preys upon them. They prey upon anything that they want. And they have this animal then who was jumping out of the water. And this businessman then comes up to the trainer. How in the world do you do that? How do you get an animal like this to do something like this? And he told him 3 things. And this guy wrote them down. He said, number 1, we build trust. Build trust. You don't start to train an animal right away. You show the animal that there's nothing in you that they should be afraid of, and this takes time. You play with them. You get in the water with them. You get in their world. You don't ask things of them. You demonstrate good intention, that they can trust you. That takes a long time. But once that's there, then you accentuate the positive. You know how they get a whale to do this? They take a string and put it under the level of the water. And when this rope underneath the level of the water, when the whale swims over it, they reward the whale and reinforce that. Then they raise the rope a little bit more. The whale swims over the rope, they reward it again. They keep raising the level of the rope. And that whale will learn to jump over the rope when they elevate it out of the water. It will still jump over the rope. And the reason why the whale does so is because it will be rewarded every time it does. Not just with food, but with different things that each whale favors. Whales are persons in that sense. They have unique personalities. You have to develop trust first to find out what the whale responds to. And then you accentuate the positive. And the businessman is saying, yeah, this is all well and good, but what do you do when people do things wrong? And he gave him a 3rd thing, redirect energy when mistakes occur. When the whale does something that is inappropriate, you lead it back to a task that it can do well. And he told the individual this: the more attention you pay to a behavior, the more it will be repeated. He thought about that. And he asked this businessman, what do you spend most of your time doing? Catching people doing things wrong? Or catching people doing things right. He says, most of my time is correcting people. Told him, the more attention you pay to a behavior, the more it will be repeated. And then he told him, if you don't want to encourage poor behavior, don't spend a lot of time on it. This is interesting. Well done. Build trust, accentuate the positive, redirect energy when mistakes occur to create a situation where somebody can do something right and can be rewarded, praised for doing things right. That is powerful and impactful. And this is, again, the book Well Done by Ken Blanchard. Real short, easy read. Good book. And then words build bridges. They do that in positive ways, but they also fight fires. Words can be constructive and accomplish things. They can build bridges between people that will allow people to do things together, but words can be destructive. They can fight fires. High-impact words encourage positive things, building bridges, and they discourage the negative. What it says in your sheet, the verse on the top, James writes, consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. And what James is describing is that words have power that continues to exist after we say them. It's like a spark. If you set a spark to a forest, the forest catches on fire. That initial spark has an influence that's destructive on that forest, far outstripping the initial thing, which was just a spark on a leaf. That's all it was, just a spark on a leaf, just this little tiny thing, which spreads and spreads and spreads. And James says words are like that. Words that judge, that criticize, words that demean, have deep impact, far outside the initial situation that catalyzed, Lord, that in which the words were spoken. What's interesting, when James is saying this, he's not pointing his finger outside of the church. He's not saying what people in the market are doing. The problem that James is addressing in his letter is not outside the church, it's in the church. And that's why this building here is a church, and it's on fire. And what James encourages then, the fires begin in the church. And then to fight fires, he is calling them to resist judgment within the church. What he says in James chapter 3, it's written in your sheet under point A, and he says, not many of you should presume to be teachers, my brothers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. We all stumble in many ways. If anyone is never at fault in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to keep his own body, his whole body in check. It's not just that the problem is within the church, is that the problem is being spread by those who are in charge of the church. It's the church leaders. That's when he says, not all of you should presume to be leaders. It's a letter, and that's one side of a conversation. The reason why he's saying that is that there's something happening with the leaders that is inappropriate. And what we know is that the fire that is being set by the leaders. He goes on. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by his good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, of the devil. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. Talks about jealousy and selfish ambition. Jealousy is craving, where you have craving, where people really want something and they want it so bad that they use selfish ambition. Let me tell you what that means. Selfish ambition is what happens during a political campaign, where one individual will say things about the other person to devalue that person and to elevate themselves. Now, we tolerate that once every 4 years on a grand scale, and on a yearly basis on another frame of reference. We're used to political campaigns, and there's some things that we get used to, but those are the things that are happening in the churches that James is writing to. One house leader is devaluing another house leader because he wants a bigger church. And in that way, that's the craving. And the church leaders are wanting influence. They're wanting power. And the way they do that is through selfish ambition. It means a campaigning, factioning spirit. And it's somebody who does things to draw away people to themselves. And so what's happening in this place then, one church leader says, oh yeah, he's not a very wise teacher. He makes a lot of mistakes, and so I wouldn't go there. And then this person's saying the same thing about that guy, and that's what's happening. And that's what James is calling attention to. The people who are doing this wouldn't call it wrong. We in the church have ways of sanctifying things that are wrong. Gossip is sharing concerns. We have ways to do this, and they're doing the same thing. They don't call this mean-spirited. They call it being wise. They call it displaying wisdom. I have knowledge that poor brother so-and-so doesn't have, and it really doesn't help him or you, does it, if I don't point it out. So I'm going to point out the faults in brother so-and-so's theology. And he'll point out, and what's happening in James' place, they're calling this wisdom. And what James says, it is wisdom, but it's not wisdom that comes from the right direction. There's wisdom from above, but there's two kinds of wisdom. There's also wisdom from below that is naturally, earthly, of the devil, demonic wisdom. And demonic wisdom doesn't have to be about seances, because what Satan likes to do is light fires. And even people taking the Bible, when the Bible is taken and used as a means whereby people are devalued and mean things said about them, then something good is being used in a way that lights fires. Now, we need to evaluate things. In fact, we're going to do a series in June. I don't know exactly what we're going to call it yet, but we're going to look at some current Christian literature. And we'll say some good things about it, and we'll also say some bad things about it. Our intent will not be to be mean-spirited. We'll look at some things that they're the shack. We'll look at it, the upsides, and is there anything on the downside of that? We'll look at some other things, some movies and purpose-driven life, and we'll just look at them and say, this is great. And I think that kind of dialogue is healthy. It's talking about things, and we'll attempt not to be mean. We won't be mean-spirited, and if we are, then you call us on it because we don't mean to be. You have to talk to things, but you don't have to run people down. When that happens, then that's using something good, and it's coming from below, not from above. The kind of wisdom that destroys rather than builds up. It's the kind of wisdom that lights fires. Unfortunately, this type of action is not confined to church leaders. Look what it says. James, one chapter later, James chapter 4, says, do you think Scripture says without reason that the Spirit He caused to live in us envies intensely? The Spirit He caused to live in us envies intensely. Here's what I think it's saying. We're addicted to blaming. The Spirit He caused to live in us envies intensely. Literally, it longs to be contemptuous. It longs to assign blame. The spirit we have, the human spirit, longs to assign blame. We feel better when we are pointing the finger at somebody. Now, we might be pointing the finger at ourselves. We might point the finger at someone else, but we feel better when we can blame somebody. It makes us feel at ease. And again, I'm not blowing us up. I'm just saying that that's what we are like. That's what we deal with. It's natural for us to assign blame, and I think what happens if we trace this, we're not going to spend a lot of time, if we don't get what we want, and there's some things we're okay with if we don't get what we want, but if it's something critical, and we don't get it and we don't get it, let me tell you what happens in us. Now, if you're not aware of this in yourself, it's because you're not aware. For all of us, what we'll do is we'll find somebody to blame. If I'm not getting my needs met, and you're my wife, or you're my husband, I'm going to find a way to blame somebody. Now, I might blame the fact that my needs aren't met on you, or I might blame me. But if I am not happy, someone's got to answer for it. Why do we do that? You know why? We're addicted to blaming. The Spirit He caused to live in us envies intensely, longs to assign blame. We feel better about ourselves and others. Now, it's not feel good, but at least it makes sense to us, because blaming makes sense to us. We deal with frustration by blaming someone for messing things up, and again, we have two places we can point a finger. I can point a finger that way, your fault. Or my fault. Either way, if I feel tension, what I'm going to do, naturally, I'm going to blame somebody. The fact is, you and I will always deal with tension. And the deal is, it's not anybody's fault. See, what the Bible says about you and me, we have two different sets of desires that pull in two different directions. God understands that. Frustration is not optional. And I don't think God would have us blame or judge. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't try to assign responsibility. That is important. But let's talk about it. What is the problem with blaming? It is necessary to correct behavior, is it not? I mean, isn't it? Yeah, I think we do have to correct behavior. Ours and the behavior of others. I think there's two things wrong with blaming. Number one, blaming cannot quiet the heart. Blaming cannot quiet the heart. I'm not saying it can't quiet it for this long. It can't quiet it for long. You know what we blame? We use blame to bury shame. I think deep down with us, if we don't get what we want, we don't feel loved. We feel ashamed. And we blame to bury shame, or we blame to bury fear. We're afraid. And we use blame. The only thing about using blame to bury things, those things don't stay down. You might feel better. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad we got that cleared up. I'm an idiot. And really, there's some sense of resolution about that we feel good about. Okay, good. I'm an idiot. But then that doesn't get rid of the tension, or you're an idiot. That doesn't get rid of the tension long. The problem with blame is that it can't quiet our hearts. Can't quiet our hearts. In our hearts, court is always in session. I can speak for myself. My thoughts are always accusing or defending. You know what happens? You know why thoughts accuse and defend? Those are courtroom things. It says in Romans chapter 1, I believe, their thoughts alternately accusing or defending themselves. Where is accusation and defense? Where does that happen? John Sirska is a lawyer. He could tell us in courtrooms. And court is always in session. And we're always charging ourselves or charging somebody else. You'll notice that all these people are the same. These individuals, it's parts of us. We attack ourselves or attack others. Court's always in session. Always charging ourselves or charging somebody else. In fact, if judgmentalness towards others is part of what you struggle with, it begins with judging yourself. This kind of judgment always leads to this kind of judgment. Blaming does not quiet our heart. The other problem with blaming is that blaming does not reflect God's heart. God is not the one charging people with crimes. In fact, the Bible talks, there is an accuser of the brethren. There's somebody that accuses and indicts and charges people with crime. We assume that is God. Who is the accuser? The name literally, Satan or devil, is the accuser of the brethren. And that's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. we assume that God is charging people, pointing out blame. But the one who is given that responsibility or title is Satan. And he forges God's signature. These individuals in the church believed that they were representing God by being judgment-oriented. That person is not wise. The fact is, they were misrepresenting God because we are addicted to blaming, but God is committed to mercy. God is committed to mercy. And if you put your finger on the pulse of what drives God, I don't care what you've heard. God is not, when you put your finger on what drives Him, He is not committed to blaming. He understands that we are spirits within bodies and that we're at war with ourselves. He understands that about you. He says, I know. I know what you deal with. My son came and he never sinned, but he felt the pull that you feel. What God would say to you, I understand and I'm not condemning you. Don't go to war with yourself. You know why? Because it doesn't help. By focusing on negative behavior, guess what happens? The negative behavior ends up being catalyzed, not positive behavior. God would have you think about His commitments to you. Why? Because it will change you. Some of us were raised to scrutinize ourselves, look carefully, judge ourselves like, well, some of us really understand this. That's what we got in church. And if this worked, I'll tell you it works, but it doesn't. You know why this doesn't work? Because this guy in the middle, he could change his behavior, but you know what God's going to judge? He's not going to judge his behavior. He's going to judge his heart, his motives. Sometimes we do things because we're afraid that God's going to destroy us if we don't change. Where do we get that? For real. Where do we get that? God demonstrated His own love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. If God was so upset and impatient with people, He never would have sent His Son to die. He demonstrates His love toward us. And here's the thing. Understanding that God's like that will change behavior. And it will change beliefs. And here's where things start. God is committed to mercy. Look what it says under point B. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit. And there's our first 4 weeks. Make peace, find common ground, build consensus, model mercy. Last 2 words, impartial. Impartial, I think, is an unfortunate translation. It means the opposite of being judgmental. The opposite of being judgmental, rendering judgment. And so it can have the sense of someone who's impartial in the way they judge. I think that it's not that precisely here. I think it's talking more about the absence of judgmental attitude. And next week we'll find it's the absence of a hypocritical attitude. Those who level charges don't represent God. And all of us deal with this. Those who make peace do. God is not ultimately interested in assigning blame. He is ultimately interested in making peace. In order to represent God, then, we are to do what God seeks to do, which is to make peace. God really doesn't want to make peace with people. He knows people are messing up. He knows that person having the affair is using that person for very self-serving purposes. He might be frustrated with his job. He might be frustrated with his wife. And when he's in that bed and in the arms of that woman, he feels temporarily loved. And you know what God understands? That's not going to fill your cup. And the reason why God doesn't like it, it's like trying to get water from an empty well. It doesn't work. In fact, most of the things we do to try to calm the tension inside doesn't ultimately work. They're addictions. Blaming is an addiction. I'm going to say that again. Blaming is an addiction. Some of us blame now some of you are thinking, oh, I hope you're listening to this, Frank. Say that again, Mike. Say that, but the flip side is blaming goes 2 ways and it's equally dangerous. I want you to hear this. I don't blame a bunch of people. I'm not an exterior blamer. I'm an interior blamer. And you know what? That's just as bad. So I might not shake my finger, but you know what I'll do? I'll walk away. And both of those, whether I'm shaking the finger or I'm walking away, neither of those is love. And what God ultimately is going to, what He demands of us, I want you to love people. You can't love people if you're shaking your finger at them. Whales understand that. They're not going to perform when somebody shakes it. In fact, if you're going to punish a whale, if you're going to punish a killer whale, you're not going to get, and if you beat this whale 11,000 pounds, and you're going to try to get this whale to jump over a rope, and if you're the manager of SeaWorld, I'm not going to want to be one of your trainers. You're beating the whale and say, okay, Mike, now go teach that whale to do what's right. You know what will happen? The whale will see me as an enemy. And it just doesn't work. In order to represent God, where to make peace. Didn't Jesus judge people? No. I mean, He's our model. Didn't He judge people? He did He not? Who did Jesus judge? You know who Jesus judged? The people who misrepresented God as being judgmental. Is that not true? Is that not true? Jesus judged the people who misrepresented God as being judgmental. Is that the truth? I believe it is. Jesus' greatest adversaries were those who said that and believed that because Jesus hung out with who He hung out with, and He didn't come down on who they thought He should come down on, that's why they didn't believe Him. But Jesus reflects the Father because God is committed to mercy. He says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. That's what He wants. Again, it's not that we don't require correction. I do, and so do you. But God understands this. Trust first. Connection. Connection. As you get to know God and His commitments to you, He'll become safer over time. That's why some of you, when you come, just sit. We have a number of places to serve. Children this summer, it's going to be fun. Some of you are new here, and what I'm going to tell you to do is sit. Because some images of God need to die in your mind in order for the right images to be created. Some of you don't trust God. Now, all of us don't trust Him, but some of you have been sold a bill of goods that isn't true. Just listen, week by week. We'll talk about what God's like. We'll talk about His commitments. You might not remember messages every week, but what will happen over time, your sense of who God is will begin to soften. You'll find yourself being less harsh with yourself. You will be moving into the direction where you'll start to change from the inside. That's the way it works. It takes time. Be gentle with yourself. Some of you listen to this and say, oh, geez, Mike, I wish I could because I had this and I had that, and God to me is scary. I get what you're saying. I remember once I was young. I was in college, and I remember the verse from John. He who has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father. And you know what I had to say? I don't love you. I'm afraid of you. The fact that you're everywhere I am, I don't like that. You make me nervous. And the good thing is, I was able to be honest with him. And I said to him, God, at some point in my life, I want not to be afraid of you. That's why I love being here. It takes time. Gosh, my sense of what happens when I think of God is so different than 30 years ago. I actually feel warmer inside now. I feel things that I never thought I'd feel. There's not the sense of agitation. I feel more comfortable. And you know what happens? I want to tell him things. I see him as an advocate. I don't see him as my accuser. Now, I've got a long way to go. But if that's the corner in which we walk towards a merciful God who loves us, that's the direction that I'm going in. Some of us have been herded in that direction, the God of punishment and judgment. You will not change in that corner. It's just the truth. You will change in that one. Now, again, don't walk into that corner. What did Mike say about the corner? It's a metaphor. Let's walk towards a God who's committed to us together. And over time, you'll find that there will be times where you'll get anxious and, gosh, I'm not changing. Be patient with yourself. Be patient. God is more concerned about your internal beliefs than your external behaviors. Some of you, your behaviors are not changing quickly. And you say, Mike, I don't know if this is true. It is true. You give it time. Invest. Get the book. Think about his commitments. Come to the Sunday morning thing. Come to the Wednesday night thing. Sit with other people and have discussions about what God is like. There's some great things happening on Sunday morning and Wednesday nights. We're talking about what God is like, and people are sharing about, I didn't know, and seeing things, and it's like scales fall off. And again, some of you can't make those things. Just hang around. Keep coming. Because last verse says, if you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you're doing right. Do you know what God's going to, you know the rule, the measuring stick God's going to use? How well did you love people? How well did your words build bridges and fight fires? And I don't say that to make you feel guilty. I'm just saying it because it's the truth. And some of us have been told that you stand firm and just call it. And no. Build bridges. Make peace. Find common ground. Build consensus. Model mercy. Resist judgment. Encourage authenticity. These are the things that are associated with love. This is the rubric by which God evaluates us. Goes on, if you show favoritism, you sin, are convicted by the law as lawbreakers. For whoever keeps the whole law and stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, don't murder. If you do not commit adultery, but do commit murder, you become a lawbreaker. Speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom. You know what he's saying to these people? They're pointing fingers, and he's saying, watch out when you point fingers. Because if you're pointing finger about, there's an adulterer, what God says, you can kill people with words. And he says that is anger in that sense. So, the point is, don't point. Don't point. Start with yourself. The reason why we're prone to judge others is because we believe that somebody is pointing at us. We're addicted to blame. God is not blaming you. The more you create an awareness of God's commitments to you, listen to me. The more you create and develop an awareness of God's commitments to you, the less judgmental you will be of yourself and the less judgmental you will be of others. If you go out of here this morning and says, I'm going to wrestle judgment out of myself, good luck. It's not going to work. You'll find yourself being frustrated 4 to 6 to 7 weeks from now. What I'm saying, there's only one route here, folks. We can only give to others what we are receiving. Receive His commitments to you, and it will enable you over time, little by little, bit by bit, thought by thought, to be less harsh with yourself and less harsh with others. That's the way it works. Is that right? I see some heads going up. That's the truth. Not what we've all been taught. Judgment will be shown to anyone who has merciful mercy triumphs over judgment. Didn't do it yesterday. LeBron James, that shot to win the game. You know what happens sometimes, though? He's better at this. Kobe Bryant is kind of, he'll kind of, can't check me, and he has kind of that look when he kind of drains one, and that's trash talk. What was that? And, that's the image here. Mercy trash talks judgment. Mercy slam dunks over judgment. wham! And relative to God, mercy has it all over judgment. You want to have God put you on a highlight film? Don't judge people. Show mercy. That's what God will show in His highlight films. That's what He values. Don't trash talk people who are judged. You understand. That's not okay. We'll be judged by the law of love. Judgment will be based in investing and using words to build bridges rather than fight fires. The worship teams are going to come up. All of us have room to grow in this. I've said a couple things. To judge is human. To show mercy divine. And we are addicted to blaming. And if you don't know that you blame, you don't know yourself very well. Because you do. You blame yourself or others. Either way, redirect. Find God looking at you. He is not blaming you. That's where it starts. Try to get a sense of what God is saying to you. He knows you need correction, but He knows you need connection before correction can happen. Understand His commitments. And over time, you'll find yourself being able to be more merciful because mercy this way is an echo of mercy this way. A couple things. You can leave the chairs where they are. There's O'Gorman has some other things this week, and if they leave them set up, then they don't have to set them up. I would like, are there any who have served in the military? Past wars, current conflicts? Anybody? Can I see, put your hands up? Would you look around at some of these folks? Could you keep your hands up for a second? I know I saw 3 over this way. And any in here? The other people, you know what you might do? We're going to pray for them after the service. Go up, give them a high five, handshake. Tell them thanks. Thanks. Let me pray. Father, I want to thank you for your words to us. And you would make peace with us. I really appreciate that. We envision you as being at war with us, and you're not. Pray you teach us about that. And I think as well, though, as of those who did go to war, in order that there could be a national level peace here. Thank you for those who have gone. Names go through our minds and faces. Individuals who have served. Individuals standing here among us. And I want to thank you for their efforts. I don't understand how that all washes out, God. But I am grateful that you put nations in place, and you are the King of the universe. And thank you for using these individuals to accomplish your purposes. Excuse me. Continue to make us the individuals and the country that you would have us to be. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great Memorial Day.